2023 has flown by, and we are quickly approaching the 10th Annual Game Awards. Fans and industry folks alike come together to celebrate accomplishments in storytelling, visuals, and bestness. An equal and arguably worse tradition are the online rants about which titles do or don't deserve a nomination, and this year's no different. One of the stranger debates out there for 2023 is whether or not Final Fantasy XVI should be categorized as an RPG, or role-playing game. One of the biggest talking points I've seen concerns the combat system, but simply searching for the phrase, "Is FF16 an RPG?" will give you plenty of results of folks calling the RPG elements lackluster. So today, let's take a deeper dive into one of the most diverse gaming genres out there, and answer the question, what makes an RPG? If I think of all the RPGs I've played over the years, a few common elements come to mind. First, gaining experience points through combat and completing quests. Second, exploring a sweeping central narrative with side quests that help flesh out the story, characters, and lore of the world. Third, leveling up to improve your stats, as well as gain new powers and abilities. And lastly, obtaining new weapons and equipment throughout the journey to improve your stats and your chances of success. When we look at the full list of nominees for this year, all 5 games meet these criteria. And as a reminder, those games are Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy XVI, Lies of P, Sea of Stars, and Starfield. The way in which each game brings these elements to life may vary, but they're all present in some form or another. Similarly, Britannica refers to role-playing video games as an electronic game genre in which players advance through a story quest, and often many side quests, for which their character or party of characters gain experience that improves various attributes and abilities. This definition certainly covers all of this year's nominees as well. Some of you may be thinking that these criteria are too broad, and you're not wrong. But here's the thing about RPGs. If we don't stay broad with it, this video goes from an essay to a dissertation. It helps to illustrate by briefly looking at the history of the genre. Since video game RPGs naturally took their inspiration from tabletop RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons, some may say that a defining characteristic of the genre would be selecting your character's class, as well as increasing specific stats that impact the game world inside and outside of combat. Making your way through a D&D campaign is not a solo effort, so games often include a party system, which allows you to bring along companions, as well as a branching narrative that hinges on the choices you've made along the way. Most, or all, of those elements probably sound familiar to you, because they're present in several popular series such as The Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Mass Effect, and Deus Ex. However, there's at least one major name in the RPG genre that has never incorporated all those elements simultaneously: Final Fantasy. The story and setting in each individual Final Fantasy game is epic and often world-spanning, but there are no deception checks, no branching narratives. In most cases, you aren't even able to select or change the player character's class. As the years have gone on, even the party system has shifted. Final Fantasy XIII had several instances of battles with predetermined participants that you could not switch in and out, and Final Fantasy XV kept you with the same companions for the entire journey, with only limited input for their attack actions. Despite these changes to the established formula, I don't recall any outcry that these entries did not qualify as RPGs. As I touched on earlier, one of the biggest points of debate regarding Final Fantasy XVI's RPG status is the combat. I've seen it compared to the Devil May Cry series due to its flashy nature and emphasis on real-time attacks. However common it may be, turn-based combat is not a requirement for the genre. In fact, real-time combat is a staple of the action RPG subgenre, under which 2021 Best RPG winner Tales of Arise and fellow 2023 nominees Starfield and Lies of P would also fall. On top of this, more and more games have been incorporating RPG elements, which almost certainly feeds into the argument over which games truly belong in the category. After all, even Spider-Man 2 involves gaining experience points for unlocking new abilities. But when you follow this train of thought to its natural conclusion, it eventually boils down to squares and rectangles. Not all RPG games share the same RPG elements, and not all games with RPG elements fall under the category of RPGs. From tabletops to consoles, action to tactics, and Japanese to Western, it feels like there are just as many subgenres for role-playing games as there are experience points to be earned in them. So while I firmly believe that Final Fantasy XVI belongs in the best RPG nominee pool, I also understand the debate about its inclusion. The Final Fantasy series is practically synonymous with console RPGs, and this latest entry marked a pretty significant departure from the typical storytelling and themes, in addition to the combat systems. But despite this new direction, all the elements and DNA of the series, and the genre, are still present. This type of essay is a bit different than some of my previous efforts, but it seemed like something fun to dive into as we lead up to the Game Awards on December 7th. If you enjoy this form of essay, be sure to let me know in the comments. Lastly, I want to give a shout out to Anthony Shelton, aka I Am a Shelton, for helping me workshop this topic. Until next time, play what you love and love what you play.